How do we take this bust and shrink it down to this size while keeping it totally awesome? It is episode 3, and we are talking about scanning, 3D printing, and molding. And so we need technology. Let's head to the basement and check it out. Boop! Hey, I'm Spencer, and it is episode 3. So what have we done already? So the last 2 episodes, we basically went from nothing, little bits of clay, into this finished sculpture. And so now we have this wonderful sculpture, and we need to make it smaller for the collectible size. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this guy, we're going to do a high-resolution 3D scan, we're going to spend some time mucking around in the computer, getting it all cleaned up and ready, so that we can 3D print that sculpture. And then once we 3D print that sculpture, then we're going to have to make a mold of that 3D print. And the whole point of that is so that we can get one of these little tiny guys of this wonderful lion, right? So this is the collectible size sculpture, right? We sell these on Port of Curiosity as the collectible versions of these sculptures. Over here, months ago, I made the solicitor pig right here, and then we did the same process, and now we have this. And the goal for today is to get one of those of this guy. Okay, so we're just setting up the scanner now. Assembling everything, getting it all ready. It actually didn't take too long. This process has probably undergone the most drastic change from when I started. And so it used to be this big, huge deal that took all night long. And now in like 30 minutes, we're going to capture this thing in the computer. There's a few moments in making sculptures the way that I do that really matter. And like making the scan really matters, making the mold really matters. Like you better have it all right where you want it because it's going to be done. We've got good strong lighting on this bad boy. And then I'm just going to stand over here. And basically it's like painting with a paintbrush. And so, you know, you can just kind of see on the screen how it's like picking up the, you can see the lion face right there. I haven't actually started scanning yet. And then it also tells me like how far or how close I need to be. So here we go, we're going to do this. The tricky part is kind of keeping the orientation correct while also capturing all the undercuts. It's kind of like the same as mold making, where you know the underneath parts are the really important parts, the hard parts to gather. And see that when it goes red, it means it's lost tracking. It just means I got distracted and moved too fast. Pretty magical, isn't it? You know, I just see you shaking your head. It's like, what in the world? We live in the future. Where it's green, it's got pretty good data. And where it's red, it needs more. And so you see the red is like on the inside of the ear and on all of the undercuts. And that's just, I mean, it's hard to get those. So it's just a matter of working it around and, you know, seeing. I'm not even looking at the sculpture, right? I'm looking at the representation of the sculpture. It's crazy living in the modern world. You know what I mean? Like you don't even think twice about the fact that you look at a collection of colored pixels on your phone and you think, oh, that's my wife. It's not. It's a collection of colored pixels on a phone. It's not your wife. It's like, have you ever heard the story of Picasso where this woman comes up to him and she's like, why don't you paint real things? Why don't you paint things really as they are? Why do you do all these abstractions? And he's at her house, right? And he looks up at the mantle and he's like, oh, is that your husband? And she says, yes, that's my husband. And he says, it's a shame that he's so flat.
Do you ever feel tension between using traditional techniques and embracing new ones?
Everything is technology, right? We forget that a toothbrush is technology, right? Clay, oil-based clay is a technology. It's like everything is an advancement, and it's only technology when it's novel, and then it just becomes part of the background noise. When I was younger, it felt like there was this thing that needed to be protected, which was the right way to do stuff, right? And now that I'm older, I realize that there is only a successful or unsuccessful way of doing things, and there's no right or wrong way. If anything, I feel like they should be in union. Like the most interesting work happens when you are skillful at the old ways and accepting of the new ways and are trying to like mash those two things together and do some cool stuff that hasn't been seen before. I mean, the coolest stuff that I've done has been at the intersection of 10,000 hours of practice of the old way and a kind of childlike inquisitiveness about this new way of doing things. And ooh, look what happens when we do those two things together, right? Yeah, I just feel like that you have to know how to do something, right? You have to have a skill first. And then once you have a skill, you can take the new stuff in and make new awesome things we haven't seen before. I think a lot of people, the trouble with technology, I think sometimes, is that people don't want to take the time to learn the skill, whatever the skill is. You know, for videography, it'd be like storytelling. The newest camera or some crazy AI 3D rendering tool is useless to a person who doesn't know how to tell a story, but it's a freaking magic wand to a person who has done the work to learn how to tell a story and then now has this new way of doing it. So I think that's the only tension, is that sometimes people feel like the technology is the sauce. But actually the sauce is that stuff you learned in the kitchen with your grandma for 10 years, and now this is just the new awesome way to share it with the world. We made the original sculpture out of clay, scanned it to get the computer version, and then once we have the computer version, we can do nearly whatever we want with it. And what I want to do is to make smaller collectible versions, and then also the really big, like, mind-blowing ones. So what we have to do today is get started on making this mold, which is to make a box, mount these lions in the box, and then we're going to mix up some silicone.
Whoa.
And then pour silicone into there to start the mold, and then put it in the pressure pot. We'll set it in here, we'll close it up, and then we'll pressurize this tank up to 50 PSI, which basically squeezes all of those air bubbles down to little tiny microscopic air bubbles. And now we need to take that out of the pressure pot. It's gonna be loud. And let's separate this silicone here. Flip it upside down so we can start making the top of the mold. And this top basically makes the bottom of the sculpture part of the mold and gives me a little hole to pour the resin in. We're gonna pour silicone in here, and when it's cured, we'll be able to take that off and put it back on with perfect confidence that resin's not gonna leak out. And once we've made the top, we will have done a spectacular job of trapping these poor little lions in this huge lump of silicone. So we gotta cut them out. We also have to clean the mold up just a little bit, but if we do things right, we will have a spectacular mold because we're awesome at doing things. Okay, pretty cool. What would my 20-year-old self think if he had walked into this studio today right here? And my wife says this to me a lot. In fact, whenever I'm in a bad mood or something's not going right, she's like, dude, do you know how amazed your 20-year-old self would be if they came into the studio and they're like, this is mine? Like, this is my future? Because it is the dream. I spent a lot of years convincing myself there was no way I could make a living making things all day long. And so then finally one day I just like, well, I'm gonna just see if I can fail at it, right? And then here we are still trying to fail at it 25 years later or whatever, right? The first part of that story is that my 20-year-old self would be very, very excited to know that this was the future. And then I think the CNC machine and the 3D printer and the scanner would blow that kid's mind. I've witnessed the exponential curve of technology in my career because I was a professional sculptor who had made lots of monuments when someone first said the word 3D printer to me. And it's so low resolution and it's so kind of clunky compared to today. I have multiple 3D printers that will just make perfect like reduction of a sculpture that I've made. So perfect that it's hard to believe it's a 3D printer. And I've watched that evolution happen in real time. So I think it's really important to remember that we live in the future and it's awesome. You ready? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We are going to take part A resin, part B of resin. We're gonna pour a little bit of part A in here, a little bit of part B in here, and then we're gonna mix them together, pour them in this mold. Time is of the essence. It's weird, there's a lot of processes in the studio where time really matters, but this is one of the ones where seconds matter, and so I both have to like be prepared, start moving when it's time to move, but also just be relaxed and not screw something up because I'm hurrying. Okay? So, here goes nothing. Part A, part B. Bloop. bad boy in pressure pot. In that pressure pot, what it's doing is it's smashing all of the bubbles so that, like, you know, all of the hair casts and all those, every single detail casts perfectly. So this is very exciting. This is one of my favorite parts of the process. Because it's like Christmas morning, right? It's like, oh, what's under the tree? Did it work? Okay, ready? So now I'm just gonna be gently prying this apart. I want, you know, the silicone has to kind of come out of all the little cracks and everything, but I don't want to be brutal about it. Pretty cool, huh? I would say great success. These are awesome. It's so cool when it works, especially when you're filming it. Woo! We did a lot in this episode. Recap. We did a 3D scan of this guy. We mucked around in the computer, cleaned it up. We made a 3D print of this guy. We cleaned up the 3D print. We molded the 3D print. Then what did we do? Oh, we cast the mold in the resin that we make the collectible sculptures in, and we have had great success, and I have a finished little guy to show you. Are you ready? Come here. So there he is. So this is the guy that will be up on Port of Curiosity for sale. We have shrunk him down. Now make sure you enter the contest that's in the description below, because the whole point of this whole episode is not to make this little guy, although that's an important part of the process. But my favorite part is coming up, because next week we're going to take this guy and we're going to make him big. And that is actually my favorite part, truly, because it's harder, right? It's a challenge. And there's just something about, there's something about this little size that you can, take home and put on your little bookshelf. And then there's something about people coming into your house and be like, oh my God, what is it? And that's what we're doing next week. So come back next week, enter the contest, smash the subscribe button, but only if it's worth it. Only if you really like this video. Otherwise, ignore the subscribe button. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.